On March 28, 1965, in Brooklyn, a baby was born to Elizabeth and Samuel McCullum. His name was Darius. At a very young age, Darius became fixated with trains. Uh, his parents would take him on the subway to calm him down, like other parents take their kids for a ride in the car to make them fall asleep. By the age of 5, Darius memorized the entire New York City subway system. But despite his genius, he didn't do very well in school. He ended up in a special education program in the city of New York. He struggled socially with his classmates, just couldn't keep his mind on school, was more interested in buses and trains and large engines. One winter day when he was 12 years old, he went to school in a heavy snowfall. There was only one other student in the class. The teacher left the two of them alone. As Darius worked on a puzzle, the other young man picked up scissors and stabbed Darius. Darius lay on the floor, bleeding, and lied there in a pool of blood, unconscious. He spent a couple of weeks in the hospital, endured several surgeries, but from that moment on, Darius hated school. Unable to handle his fears, Darius snuck off to the subway every day, even though his parents thought he was going to school. And the MTA employees loved him. He loved to volunteer to sweep the trains, clean the work areas. He was obsessed with the subway system. And the workers liked this little kid. They gave him uniforms and keys and hard hats, anything that looked like the MTA. Eventually, Darius grew up. He became a big boy. By 15, he became a proficient helper. The employees actually taught Darius how to run a subway. One day, an employee decided to turn the subway over to Darius. Passengers became alarmed. Darius was arrested for stealing a train. But he kept his secret as to how he got the train, and the MTA employees continued to love Darius. But he was adjudicated a felon. And eventually he went back to school, but that didn't last. He was more interested in trains and buses than he was in school. So he would keep going back to the subways. And that was a violation of his probation. The MTA workers kept teaching him, despite his violation of probation. He became the unofficial operator of the buses when they needed washing. Ultimately, in 1989, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism. But Darius never received any treatment. He never got into the OPWDD system. And he kept going for rides on buses and trains. One day he was arrested at gunpoint by 5 New York City police officers for maneuvering a Greyhound bus carefully through the streets of New York City. Interesting sidelight, following 9/11, Darius was taken out of Rikers by federal agents and became their guide to show them the New York City subway system and where some some intruders might hide. But none of this helped Darius. In court, the district attorney from Brooklyn portrayed Darius as a dangerous monster. A Wall Street law firm offered their services and represented them pro bono. They brought in psychiatrists to say he had autism, he was not mentally ill. The judge, despite the fact that Darius never hurt anyone, never acted violently, never damaged any property, committed Darius to hell on earth, the Mid-Hudson Forensic Psychiatric Center, a place for the criminally insane. The judge said that the law is unclear as to what mentally ill actually means. In the meantime, Darius still sits locked away at the Rochester Forensic Psychiatric Hospital, a prison facility for the criminally insane, with the most dangerous inmates in the state. Darius is not dangerous and has never been, but he's a result of a bad system. This is Kendra's law in action. And what does this budget do about Kendra's law? Does it fix it? No, it makes it worse. It adds some standards which are alien to our mental hygiene statutory scheme. So broad that it'll capture many more Dariuses. We tried to change it. I spoke with our staff. They went forward with a proposal that I had made. Very simple proposal to say if somebody is captured who's not mentally ill, send them to OPWDD. Kendra's law says you're sent for analysis. If you're found mentally ill, you get sent for treatment. If you're not, you go back to court. Autism, other developmental disabilities are not mental illness. So the alternative is you go in for treatment you don't need, or you go back to court and plead, like Darius tried to, that he wasn't responsible for his actions, which doesn't work. So we have before us a budget that makes the situation even worse. Law enforcement agents, courts are not trained to recognize the difference between people with IDD who manifest behavioral difficulties very similar to those who have mental illness. And this bill is responding to a concern by the people of the city of New York that there are too many people on the street who have some kind of a condition that is a problem. It doesn't provide more beds for those who are found to be mentally ill. It doesn't provide any more treatment. It just acts as if somehow those who are judged to be mentally ill will be taken care of. And those who are not mentally ill, well, they must be criminals. It forgets that third category, the Dariuses of the world. We heard my colleagues talk about the infirmities, the legal infirmities of Kendra's law. I'm not going to dwell on those. I just want you all to understand the practical implications of what we have. Some of my colleagues have looked at these problems and said, these are reasons to vote no. As the chair of the Committee on People with Disabilities, Mr. Speaker, I'm very tempted to vote no, because this is a very serious problem. But at the same time, I was elected for the people of the state of New York to do as many good things as I could. Lawrence O'Brien, who was a counselor to John Kennedy many years ago, wrote a book that said there are no final victories. You know, there are no final decisions. The legislative process is an ongoing process. All year long we work. For 6 months we pass legislation. Every once in a while there's an inflection. We stop. We pass a budget. We pass a big bill. But the process keeps going. We have an obligation to make this government work for as many people as possible and to keep this government going. If we don't pass a budget tonight, it stops. The schools don't get the money they need. That bond act that we're so proud of doesn't get put on the ballot. All of the other increases. No, we're not giving enough money to the workers who day in and day out take care of our loved ones, but we're giving them more than they had yesterday. It's not enough, but it's a little bit better. So, Mr. Speaker, I look at all the work that our staff has put in, including the Speaker of the Assembly, the Majority Leader, all of the staff, and so many other people, and I can't now vote no and say it was all for naught. Rather, I'm going to draft a bill and put it in on Monday morning to solve the problem that I just talked about. And so many of the other things that people are complaining about tonight are about policy. And this debate tonight and this piece of legislation demonstrates very well why we should not have policy in the budget. But we have governors who insist on using that power that they have to put policy in the budget, and we've got to deal with it. So I don't like the policy, but I look at the overall package and I say this package moves us forward. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to vote yes tonight. I've made my concerns known, but tonight is not the end. On Monday morning, I'm going to put a piece of legislation in to correct what I think is a very serious flaw in this legislation. But it's one flaw in a very good piece of legislation and a very good budget. And I just ask my colleagues to join me, vote yes tonight, and Monday morning, draft a piece of legislation to correct the things that you think are wrong with this budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.